Hi, my name is Sean Prokes, and I'll be teaching you how to string a tennis racket. Today we will be learning how to string 4 knots or 2-piece patterns. We will be using the Wilson Bayardo stringing machine, same like the guys use at the US Open. The first thing we will do is mount our racket on the machine. You want to start with the top of the frame, secure it in place with the inner and outer clamps. You can then proceed to the bottom part of the frame and secure it as well. We're looking for a firm, but not too tight, not too loose grip. The next step is to measure our main strings. Clara here will be doing 4 arm lengths. I'm a little bit taller, so I end up doing a little bit less. I think for beginning, better to do 4 arm lengths to be safe, and as you learn, you can always adjust accordingly. We start our hybrid by using the 2 middle mains. In a frame like this, where there are 8 holes at the bottom, we will put them through on the top, going to the throat of the racket. In a racket that may have 6 holes at the bottom, this will happen in the opposite direction, from the throat going to the head of the frame. Pull them through evenly. By pulling them at the same time, you can guarantee that you have equal lengths on both sides. We will now start tightening and clamping the main strings. You do not need to pre-weave for a hybrid pattern. You want to put a clamp in, and you also want to use the starting clamp to fortify the first pull. The first string that you tighten will be the one that does not have the clamps on it. Clara here will go ahead and tighten her first string, and then she will clamp on the bottom or the throat of the frame opposite of where she has her starting clamp and regular first clamp. You can now proceed to do up to 4 mains on that side. Once you do 4 mains on this one side, you can then proceed to the other side and do the rest of the racket, leaving the last main untensioned. Here we have all of our mains on one side finished except for the last one. Leave that remaining one untensioned before proceeding back to the other side. On the other side, finish up your mains and leave the last one untensioned as well. Now we will do our last 2 mains and tie our knots. First, start with whichever one you want and increase to knot tension. In this case, we use 10% higher than our normal selected tension. Tighten that string and clamp. You proceed then to the opposite side of the frame and do the same thing. Knot tension again, tighten the string, and clamp. Now we will start our knot. We will go to the manufactured hole, push the string through, and pull it all the way through. You go down around the main, under and around, through the loop that you just made. You go back, around, through the back of your loop, and tighten with your other hand. You may now use a tool to pull the knot tight and firm against the frame, and then you can continue to tighten the end using the rest of the slack that you have created. When holding your finished knot with your tool, you want to make sure to release the clamp that is holding the last main on the same side. By doing this, you prevent any loss of tension on that last main. Now we repeat the same steps on the opposite side of the racket. We use a small but effective knot, and you can use it with any type of string. You may use any knot that you know will hold tension well and that will look clean. For the crosses, you need a little bit less string than for your mains, but if you are just beginning, feel free to measure about 4 arm lengths again, just for safety. You can start on the second cross and go over and under your mains all the way through. You will now go back and do your first cross, and your first cross should be the exact opposite of your second cross. This means where your second cross goes over a main, your first cross should go under. Leave yourself enough string to tighten and then tie your knot. Take your starting clamp and place it on the outside of the frame, which will hold your position and allow you to then tighten that first cross. Go ahead and tension. Use your opposite clamp to hold it in place. Then proceed to the second cross and tighten that one as well. Catch it with the clamp on the same side as the starting clamp. You can continue weaving your next string. Clara here weaves her third string, will tighten, and then she will clamp with the clamp opposite of the starting clamp. Once she tightens it and catches it, she can then return to her knot. This doesn't have to be on the third string, but in this case, that's what we will do. Increase the knot tension, remove your starting clamp, and use your clamp that's on the same side, which is now free, to hold the string. We return back to the next manufactured hole and tie the same knot that we showed earlier in the video. Now that your starting knot is complete and your clamp is released, you can proceed and weave the next cross. From now on, it is best to pre-weave one cross ahead. It is always easier to weave in the open part of the racket, and as you get further and further along, it will become more difficult to weave your crosses. Always weave away from where the tension is already tight. You want to leave a natural curve when you tighten the strings. Do not straighten it before pulling because this may cause cutting in the strings, and you can always straighten it and adjust after. You can see Clara here using her hands to move the strings while she pulls. This is to take away any excess friction and make sure she doesn't damage any strings in the process. When you are weaving towards the bottom of the racket, it may be easier to break up your weave into smaller parts. That is because the racket is already tight, as we mentioned before. You can now increase to knot tension for the last time and tie your last knot. Make sure that while holding this knot, you release both of your clamps. When you finish, make sure to straighten your strings and check your work. Remember, each racket is different. In this case today, we had a racket where we started our mains at the top and pulled them down to the throat of the racket. In other cases, this may be reversed, and you may start at the throat of the racket and pull the mains up towards the head. For the crosses, this is also true. You may be starting your weave on the opposite side based on how the bumpers are in the frame. What I mean by opposite side is that we start our weave on the left or the right side of the frame. We never weave from the bottom of the frame to the top. We still go from the top or the head down towards the throat and then tie off at the bottom. Congratulations, you now know how to string a tennis racket.